The clock on the wall had stopped at 3:14 a.m., but Mira didn't notice. She was buried in her headphones, scrubbing through the vocal takes of her latest podcast. Every breath, every tiny imperfection had to be excised. But as she hit playback, the silence between her words didn't stay silent. Her own voice lingered, stretching into an echo that lasted seconds too long. It sounded thin, stripped of its warmth, like a recording of a ghost. Mira frowned and clicked the stop button. The playhead froze on the screen, but the sound didn't. The echo of her last sentence, and that's the truth, continued to ripple through her headphones, growing sharper and more metallic with every repetition. She checked the software settings, looking for a feedback loop or a rogue delay plugin, but every virtual knob was turned to 0. The waveform on the screen was a flat line, yet the audio meters were dancing, as if the room were screaming. She tore the headphones off, but the sound followed her into the physical air of the room. It wasn't just an echo anymore. The bits and pieces of her recorded words were being stitched back together into new, nonsensical phrases. Truth, thin, cold. Truth, help, me. The voice was hers, but the cadence was wrong, jerky and rhythmic like a malfunctioning engine. In the corner of the studio, the shadows seemed to vibrate, coalescing into a shape that hummed with the frequency of her own fear. Panic rising, Mira tried to clean the master file. She applied every noise gate, every compression filter, and every subtractive EQ she possessed. She wanted to scrub the entity out of the data. But with every click of the mouse, the overlapping waveforms on her screen grew more complex, layering over one another until they looked like a cage of translucent glass. The more she tried to refine the sound, the more solid the entity became, feeding on the very process of digital purification. Mira opened her mouth to scream, but no sound came out. She watched her reflection in the dark glass of the window. Her lips moved, but the air remained dead. Then, 3 seconds later, the scream finally erupted from the speakers behind her, followed by a chorus of whispers that mimicked the shape of her throat. The lag was infectious. Her reality was falling behind its own soundtrack, and the echoes were the only things moving in real time. Driven by a need for human contact, she stumbled out into the night. But the filter had spread. On the street, a businessman checked his watch and a girl laughed into her phone, but their voices all carried the same hollow, processed metallic ring. Above their heads, Mira saw the same jagged sound wave patterns she had seen on her monitor, pulsing in a perfect, terrifying unison. The world wasn't talking anymore. It was being played back through a master channel. She realized then that the entity wasn't a ghost. It was a parasite of perfection. It lived in the filters, in the desire to strip away the noise of being alive. It thrived in the gaps where the human element was edited out to make things smoother, cleaner, and more palatable. The entity was the sum of everything she had deleted over the years, a digital god made of discarded breaths and stuttered words, finally claiming the space she had cleared for it. Mira ran back to her studio, her lungs burning. She didn't reach for the mouse this time. She reached for the physical cables. With trembling hands, she bypassed the interface. She disabled the noise gates, deleted the compressors, and turned off every single filter. She opened a raw, unshielded channel, letting the room's natural hum, the hum of the refrigerator, the wind against the glass, the frantic beat of her own heart, flood the system. "You want the sound?" she hissed, her voice finally catching up to her lips. "Then take it all." She didn't try to speak clearly. She screamed, she sang off key, she sobbed, and she slammed her hands against the desk. She embraced the clipping, the distortion, and the ugly raw feedback. She filled the silence with the messy, unedited chaos of a human being who refused to be corrected. The entity shrieked, a sound of pure, uncompressed agony. The sterile, perfect waveforms began to fracture. The silhouettes in the corner of the room and the patterns in the air didn't just fade, they broke apart like glass. The digital perfection couldn't survive the influx of raw, analog noise. Static filled the room, a blizzard of gray and white that blinded Mira as the processed world dissolved around her. When the static cleared, the sun was beginning to peek over the horizon. Mira sat on the floor, her back against the cold metal of her desk. She spoke a single word, "Hello?" The sound was hoarse, cracked, and slightly quiet. There was no echo. There was no lag. It was just a small, imperfect sound in a large, imperfect room. She felt the weight of her own body again, anchored by the beautiful flaws of the physical world. Mira still records her stories, but she never touches the delete key anymore. She leaves in the stumbles, the sighs, and the sound of the rain outside. She keeps the noise because she knows what waits in the silence. Sometimes, late at night, she thinks she hears a faint, rhythmic hum coming from behind her speakers, a reminder that the filter is always waiting for things to become too perfect again.